The sound that changed everything was not an alarm or a phone call, but a trembling whisper carried through a marble-floored lobby, a sound so small it should have disappeared, yet it struck like thunder. A little girl stood there in worn sneakers, clutching a frayed backpack, her eyes wide with fear, telling a stranger that her mother was not waking up. The man she spoke to was a CEO used to numbers, contracts, and power, but in that moment, his entire world froze. Something in the child's voice cracked open a place in him he thought had been buried forever, and without understanding why, he knew his life was about to change. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of compassion, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us what truly matters. The CEO's name was Michael Harrington, a man known across New York City for building one of the fastest-growing logistics companies in the country. His days were a blur of meetings, polished offices, and security teams who ensured no one unexpected ever reached him. That morning, he had just finished a board meeting and was heading out when he noticed the little girl standing alone near the entrance. Her name, he would later learn, was Grace Whitman, just 7 years old, carrying the weight of fear far too heavy for her small shoulders. She had wandered into the building by accident, following the crowd, desperate for help because her mother, Sarah Whitman, had collapsed in their tiny apartment only a few blocks away. Michael had not always been the cold executive people saw now. Years earlier, before success hardened him, he had lost his own wife to a sudden illness, leaving him with guilt and unanswered prayers. Since then, he had built walls around his heart, convincing himself that staying detached was the only way to survive. But seeing Grace standing there, her face pale, her hands shaking, those walls began to crumble. Without thinking about schedules or optics, he followed her back out into the city, his polished shoes walking into a world he usually ignored. The apartment was small, dim, and smelled of old paint and instant noodles. Sarah lay on the couch, her face ashen, her body still. Michael moved quickly, calling emergency services and staying close, watching Grace cling to the edge of the room as if afraid the world might swallow her next. As paramedics worked, Michael noticed the unpaid bills stacked on the table, the empty fridge, and the exhaustion etched into every corner of the place. This was not a single moment of bad luck. This was a life lived on the edge. At the hospital, hours stretched endlessly. Doctors explained that Sarah had collapsed from severe exhaustion combined with untreated illness. She'd been working 2 jobs, skipping meals, ignoring her own pain so her daughter could eat and attend school. Michael sat in the sterile waiting room, something he had not done in years, watching Grace fall asleep against his arm. He felt a strange responsibility settle over him, heavier than any business decision he had ever made. When Sarah finally woke, weak but alive, tears streamed down her face when she realized where she was. Michael stood quietly nearby, feeling like an intruder in a story that was not his, yet unable to walk away. Over the following days, he learned more about their lives. Sarah had once dreamed of becoming a nurse, but life had forced her onto a different path after her husband died in a workplace accident. There had been no safety net, no one to catch them when everything fell apart. Michael arranged for Sarah to receive proper medical care, paid quietly, anonymously at first, though Sarah eventually learned the truth. He helped secure a safe place for them to stay while she recovered, and he made sure Grace could continue going to school without worry. But the greatest change was not in their lives alone. Michael began visiting often, bringing groceries, sitting silently, listening. In those moments, he rediscovered empathy, the simple human connection that had once guided him before ambition took over. As weeks passed, Sarah regained strength, and Grace's laughter slowly returned to the room. Michael started questioning his own life choices. He saw how close he had come to losing everything meaningful without realizing it. Inspired by their resilience, he launched a company initiative focused on employee wellness and community support, creating programs for families living paycheck to paycheck, ensuring no one under his watch would ever have to choose between health and survival. The media never knew the real reason behind the sudden shift in his company's values. They called it strategic rebranding, but Michael knew the truth. It was the result of a frightened child's courage and a mother's silent sacrifice. Grace had unknowingly saved not only her mother's life, but also Michael's soul. Near the end of that year, Sarah stood on her own feet again, stronger than before, enrolling in nursing classes with support Michael arranged through scholarships, not charity, but belief. Grace thrived in school, her drawings filled with bright colors instead of dark corners. Michael watched from a distance, proud but humble, knowing he had simply responded to a moment when he could have walked away. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and let us know in the comments, because your engagement helps stories of hope reach people who desperately need them. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment the word kindness below if you believe one small act can change a life forever. Michael returned to that marble lobby often, not as a CEO, but as a man aware that miracles do not always arrive loudly. Sometimes they come as a whisper from a child who refuses to give up. And in listening, everything can change.